Welcome to My Business Matters, the Michigan Chamber podcast.
Welcome to My Business Matters, the podcast of the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, where we explore the issues shaping Michigan's economy and the workplaces that drive it. I'm your host today, Jim Holcomb. I'm the President and CEO of the Michigan Chamber. And today we're looking at one of the fastest moving parts of doing business in Michigan, HR and employment law. What to watch for and what are the latest trends. Today I'm pleased to have a panel of three distinguished experts, people who really can help our listeners understand what's going on in Michigan. We have John Below. He's a partner with Bodman Law. He has over 30 years of experience, Bodman being one of the leading law firms here in Michigan. Jodi Schafer, she's a certified HR professional and the principal owner of HRM Services, and the Michigan Chamber of Commerce's very own Becky Burtka, and she'll share some resources to help businesses how they stay compliant and moving forward. So thank you all for joining us.
Thanks. Thanks for having us.
I think I'll start, Jodi, let's start with you. Just got a big picture. As you look out and you survey the land, what are some of the trends or issues that are really capturing your eye right now?
I think a lot of my clients are small to medium-sized businesses, and there seems to be a lot of uncertainty right now. I know from an HR professional standpoint, we're always watching the compliance landscape and trying to figure out how the business community is going to adapt.
Yep.
And with the new administration sitting in the White House, there's a very different lens on what some of the existing laws mean, right? So just because the law is written one way doesn't mean that that's how it is necessarily viewed, depending on who sits in the White House and who heads up those enforcement agencies.
There's no consistency between parties?
That is the consistency. So I think uncertainty at the federal level, there does seem to be a push towards deregulation. We're seeing some proposed rules on the OSHA side. We're seeing some proposed rules on the independent contractor side. And I know that that's an issue that swings back and forth. And we're seeing it at the state level too. What does it really mean to be an independent contractor? And so businesses are keeping an eye on that. And I think if you look out even more broad than that, kind of the economy in general, what's going to happen? Are costs going to continue to rise? Healthcare. I mean, this is about the time of year when a lot of folks are getting their premiums.
Oh, we're getting them right now.
It's insane. It's insane. And so they're just trying to figure out how are we going to make it all work. Yeah,
it really does have an impact to the bottom line. And, you try to be a good employer. You want to offer good benefits and retain good people. But there are certainly cost pressures on that. John, one word that Jodi mentioned that kind of drew me to you is uncertainty. That seems to be the lawyer's playground there and dealing with uncertainty and trying to advise clients. What are you seeing out there? What are you hearing from clients? And a little bit of how maybe you help them navigate it.
Sure. I think that one of the things that, and by the way, I think Jodi nailed it, but the uncertainty, okay, so my clients crave predictability, right? I talk about that all the time with our clients. And, I was going to mention that I think one of the kind of the hot items right now is a couple court decisions. Of course, the lawyer is going to talk about a court decision, but there's a recent court decision that can impact really all employers, almost no matter how small. Because in the case of I'll just call it Rayford for now. But Rayford is a Michigan Supreme Court case that stated that time limitation agreements regarding when an employee or a former employee may bring a claim are not enforceable automatically like they have been for years and years and years. And Rayford involved in an employee acknowledgement of a handbook and in that acknowledgement it had a 6-month time limitation with respect to any claims which arise out of or relate to the employment or the termination of employment.
So the employer and the employee agreed to that, and the court said, hey, that doesn't apply anymore?
Well, the court said that that's really kind of not the kind of contract that we would enforce. They call them adhesory contracts or contracts of adhesion because of the relative lack of bargaining power by the party who signed it. I think the key here is to probably not get into too much with respect to what contracts of adhesion are, but that employee handbook acknowledgments, or in a even more recent case called Paris, like the really cool town in France, is which involved an application that contained a contractual claim limitation period, that these are no longer automatically enforceable. The court is going to undertake a reasonable inquiry about the bargaining power of the parties, and which inevitably will result in a case-by-case examination of fairness and bargaining and negotiation. So it takes away that predictability. I mean, there are strategies to hedge against this, but all of my clients have these claim limitation periods.
John, are you, sorry, this is Jodi. I'm just curious here because we do a lot of handbook work, and we've been looking at this case as well. And so there's been some back and forth conversation about, well, do you still keep it in there knowing that it's not a stone cold lock that you can enforce it, but at least it's maybe a step in that direction? Or do you remove it altogether and try to put it somewhere else? What are you advising clients on that?
Yeah, excellent question. So 2 things come to mind relative to that. One is I think you keep it in there because some people are just going to comply anyway.
Yep.
Or think that it applies. Now, somebody could say, well, maybe that's not fair, but at the same time, the courts haven't said that they're automatically unenforceable either.
Yeah, that was our take on it too. Might as well just have it in there, like kind of a safety net. Yeah.
Right. But the second piece I would tell you is that, and this is something that I've been telling clients for years, and I don't get a lot of companies that want to do it, but I think that they should consider making a separate agreement with their employees that sets forth maybe a claim limitation period, maybe something else, and give them a separate amount of consideration and have them, I don't know what that amount is, and I know that employers, they're like, what, I'm not going to pay for this. I get it. But if you want to try to make that type of a term more bulletproof, you've got to show some amount of negotiation, some amount of bargaining relativity, if you will. And that type of thing, a separate agreement with some amount of consideration. Maybe it's $250, maybe it's $500, but at least it shows that the employee said, you know what, I'll take your $500 and I'll agree to these terms.
There was at least a bargain at some point.
Yeah, and then you've got your limitation periods again. You've built in that level of predictability that you expect and want. And so that's what I've been counseling clients on, because these cases are very new.
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest things. I think, we talked about proposed rules and uncertainty, the changing landscape. Jodi, one thing I'm really interested in, I don't think much has caused, there hasn't been anything causing as much uncertainty as the new earned sick time and minimum wage laws. I'm wondering what you're seeing among your clients, and how do you deal with that, especially something in the legislative process, and we had, legislative initiated laws. How is the business supposed to comply with that?
Yeah, that ESTA for me was like a PTSD moment of COVID. It was like, it was coming. We had to deal. We couldn't stick our heads in the sand, and yet it was difficult to figure out what the rules were going to be. There was a lot of energy and movement at the legislative level that was pointing to the fact that the way that the law was originally written was not going to be the way that it was going to be enacted on the 21st of February, but it took all the way up until the 21st of February before we actually saw what those rules were. So that was challenging for all of us, and that February 21st date was for employers of 11 plus, so not even large employers, but just 11 plus. And then obviously October 1st was the date for 10 and under. So now at this point, everybody is complying. And
do you feel it's settled now?
What we're noticing is the fear around, will this lead to abuse? Will this lead to staffing issues because we can't predict our attendance levels, because we don't have a disciplinary mechanism to incentivize folks to come to work? That's playing out in some sectors and not others. I think that was a fear of most employers when they looked at the language of the bill. But we're not seeing, when we talk to our clients, we're not seeing that has been universally the case, but we are absolutely seeing it in some sectors. We're seeing it in manufacturing. Our manufacturing clients, where they might have had a point system. If you didn't give a proper amount of notice, you can't apply points to ESTA. So that's challenging to know what your staffing levels are going to be. It's also difficult to know if it's a valid ESTA reason, because as you know, you can't really request anything to prove it until they've been out for more than 3 days. And so this idea of abuse, we're seeing it in manufacturing, and I'm seeing it too in healthcare, but not clinical positions, more like front desk positions, that kind of thing. Like, do we have enough folks to man it? So the abuse piece is challenging. We just had a client reach out to us. We actually worked through the chamber to connect with Leo to figure out what can the client do if they have reasonable belief or honest belief that abuse is happening. And so I think Leo's still trying to figure it out. There isn't anything on the FAQ site yet. They're like, we're looking at that. We're kind of thinking we're going to go down the FMLA route, which again, not particularly helpful. No. And a client's just going to have to kind of step out on the limb, right? When a client is comfortable enough with risk that they have an honest belief that abuse is happening, they make a decision that might be disciplinary in nature, and they wait to see if the employee challenges it. And if so, then that would work through the Leo process, and we'd figure out what are the rules. But until a client steps off that, steps out on that limb, who wants to be the first one?
Yeah, because that gets back into John's bailiwick and getting into the legal system. It seems like there's a definite push, whether it's in the courts or policymakers, that they feel like they need to somehow empower the employee to be on equal footing. It doesn't matter that the business owner invested, built the business, takes on all the risk. In their mind, they're somehow balancing the equities a little bit on this.
Yeah, in so many of our clients, we're already offering paid time off because, one, they just think it's the right thing to do. I mean, this idea that business owners, especially small and medium-sized business owners, are the big bad wolf is just, it couldn't be further from the truth. They want to do right by their people because they understand how important their people are to their business because they're so close to their people. They're not these, billionaire CEOs with, locations all across the country. Like they know these people. They shop in the same grocery store as their staff. So they were already offering paid time off, but not to everyone. Where we are seeing this is like the part-time folks maybe weren't getting it. Temporary folks maybe weren't getting it. And I do think that it's challenging when you're in a low wage earning position with the rising cost of everything to be out from work through no fault of your own. And you could lose 20% of your paycheck that week because of it, right? So I'm not 100% for or against. I don't love it when government steps in and tells a business owner what to do. But I do also understand that there are some vulnerable portions of our workplace that need some sort of a safety net.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I can just speak from our experience with the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. All of our members are trying to be the best employers. The number one issue they tell me they face is attraction and retention of talent. The best way to attract and retain talent is have a good culture, a good working environment, pay them as much as you can to give them good benefits. And it's kind of that balance. I think government, when they get involved, they just tend to skew it. I think by and large, many times the employer and the employee can figure it out on their own, and they do a good job of trying to do that. But you made mention earlier, just as we were talking about rising healthcare costs.
Oh, my goodness.
And just the impact of that to the bottom line, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I give people good benefits? How do I give them the time off they need for their family and have the flexibility? Because that, to me, that's what I'm hearing, at least from our employees. They like the flexibility more than anything. They just want the employer to be responsive to their needs as a family member and to be able to take care of their own life. John, I'm wondering from you, we talked a little bit about earned sick time and ESTA. Are there other issues out there that you see maybe similar in nature that are hitting the courts or the policymakers right now?
Well, I think that what I do a lot of litigation. So what I'm seeing is a proliferation of Fair Labor Standard Act claims smaller businesses are probably better able to track, when somebody comes in, when they start working, et cetera. But there are a lot of, and there will still be many more lawsuits brought against companies by employees who say that they were not paid an appropriate rate or they were not paid overtime for time after they clocked in, and then started a shift, for instance, which points the spotlight at how do employers, monitor, when somebody actually starts working or not. And that's something that a lot of my clients are confronting because, they have payroll systems, and clock-in systems, and they have grace periods that they have to give before a shift starts. And this is presenting a big challenge for a lot of our clients.
Well, and how do you go down that road with a lot of remote work as well? I know some companies maybe track when you turn on your computer or when you log into the company's system, but that's just got to be a whole nother level of burden to track it to make sure you are doing it the right way. And I wholeheartedly believe most employers are absolutely trying to do it the right way.
Well, it's not like you can just make everybody exempt.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. You
can't just ignore the exemption testing and how that all works. So, it's difficult. And same thing with on-call time. More and more organizations are trying to be available 24/7 if they're a service business, and maybe they have AI that's part of that. Maybe they've got some bots and whatnot on their website, but trying to be responsive and trying to stay competitive in this marketplace. You're trying to offer that support around the clock, and I see that too, John, and you probably do too. Like, when is on-call time compensable, and when is it not? And then how does that affect potentially the rate that you're computing overtime against? Because overtime is time and a half your regular rate of pay, which is not always the same as your hourly rate.
Yeah, we are litigating that issue as I stand here talking to you. Yeah, it's a pretty involved question, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Like what is work within an on-call time? What is like really just being on call and not really doing anything? That's where the questions are answered.
Yeah.
John, are you seeing any other AI implications in any of the issues you're dealing with or the counseling you do to your clients? We talked about this is one area, but I've got to believe as that technology expands, there's just going to be more issues that arise and how human resource issues are raised with employees when you have AI involved.
Yeah, there's no question, Jim. This is super hot right now, and it's only going to get more hot. It's only going to get hotter, really. It's clients are trying to put some amount of guardrail on employee use of AI in the way that they're performing their job duties. There are, potential problems with employees performing their work using, an AI, particularly a large language model system like a ChatGPT, and the employer not really knowing about it because there'll be some sharing of the company's internal information. Sometimes there is privacy concerns. Sometimes there's IP concerns. So we're doing a lot of policy writing relative to trying to put some guardrails on when employees can utilize AI in performing their job duties and getting permissions for that and things like that.
Yeah,
really hot stuff.
One of the concerns I always have, whether it's AI or any other emerging technologies, is the application becomes a patchwork. Because if you don't have federal standards and it's state by state and you have companies trying to operate in state by states, or if you have locals coming in, I may have employees in two different locations in the same state, but they have different standards. Jodi, how do you navigate that with your, whether we're talking about handbooks or anything else? How do you
on the compliance side?
Yeah, on the compliance side. How do you advise clients?
In Michigan, luckily, we had a preemptive law passed that said no local unit of government can have laws that are more restrictive than the state. So at least in Michigan, we kind of have a level playing field there. We still have to comply with federal, and there can be differences between those two. But when you get into some of these other states where we also have clients, it's not that way. To your point, they can have local municipality rules that will differ. And if you've got more than one location, it's really challenging. I think partnerships are the key here, especially based on size. If you don't have resources to have an in-house HR expert who's kind of monitoring this, because compliance is part of an HR's responsibility. It's not just the people piece, which is our favorite piece. We don't get to spend as much time on that sometimes because the compliance can be so time consuming. So if you don't have that in-house expertise, making sure that you have partnerships that you can lean on. Certainly we provide that for clients. Employment law attorneys absolutely do. The Michigan Chamber has a lot of resources on that too. And there are ways that you can seek information actively. Like, I have this question, let me go out and see what the answer is. And that's become easier than ever now. But passive ways to get information, because sometimes as a business owner, you didn't even know that you needed to ask the question to find the answer, right? You didn't even know this was coming. So having some sort of a professional organization, oftentimes like your professional memberships this will be a member benefit that you'll get. You'll get sort of notifications on a regular basis about what's happening at the state level or the federal level that might impact you, so that it's coming right to your inbox and you don't always have to know to go look for it. That can be really helpful. Yeah,
Becky, at the Michigan Chamber, I know you have a lot of contact with our members and deal with some of these issues. What are you telling them? Everybody on our podcast today is all about helping, informing employers, providing counseling, whether it's HR, professional counseling, legal counseling, advocacy counseling, and what are you doing within the chamber to point people to the right direction?
Yeah, so we host what we call our MyBiz 360 HR Talent and HR series. So we do a number of things from a webinar perspective to an in-person summit perspective, but we pull all of those HR resources together because we've learned over time here that we are seen as that educational resource for businesses, but that business owners wear multiple hats. Jodi, you're a business owner and you're a small business owner. So you feel that both with your clients, but also yourself. Right. And so what we see is that a lot of chamber members who are wearing these different hats, their owners, their HR, their operations, they're just trying to do the best thing they can. And they just need the information as fast as they can and in an accessible manner. So through this HR pipeline that we've created with MyBiz 360, we've been able to deliver these resources both in print, webinar, in person, with HRCI and SHRM credits available if that's something else that people are looking for. But we're finding those bite-sized ways to deliver the resources to them for a variety of issues and a variety of platforms to make sure that it's accessible, but that they're getting what they need, because we get that outreach daily.
Yeah, if people are on the podcast, they want outreach, where should they go within the chamber work? Yeah,
so it's as simple as michamber.com/mybiz360, and we have all of our resources there, from webinars to our HR newsletter now that we've just launched, but just keeping people informed so that they can be compliant and operational in Michigan, because Michigan has been a state where things have changed so quickly. Not even talking about the federal level, but just the things that are happening at the Capitol and what our advocacy team, Wendy Block, our lead lobbyist, has been fighting at the Capitol nearly every day. So a lot of things to field and make sure that people are up to date, but that they also have those in-print resources and opportunities available.
John, Jodi raised a good point that a lot of times people don't know what they don't know until they go looking. How much of a problem is it? How many times do you get a client who comes to you because they tried to do it on their own? They went out and trusted something on the internet, or they put something into Chat GPT or any of the, AI, and took that as legal advice instead of going to someone like yourself or someone like Jodi, who really are the professionals.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it does happen periodically. It does, these relationships that you speak of that Becky just discussed, and Jodi has been so good today, it shows how people, if they don't take anything else from this podcast or the messaging that comes out of the chamber, it's that a good trade organization, a good law firm, a good consultant provides companies with the opportunity to leverage vast, intelligent experience so that they can successfully move forward. They don't have to have the experience. All they have to do is reach out.
Yep, exactly. I think that's...
And they can take that away, and that's really what I'm getting even from this podcast today. It's just really good stuff.
Yeah. Well, as we get ready to close out, I would like to go around. You made a good point there about reaching out. if you have anything, a short checklist or points that people listening should absolutely be thinking about or looking at. And then also feel free to give how people can get in touch with you and contact all of you. Becky, we'll just start with you and go around the horn.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I do want to thank Bodman for being our HR partner here. They're a trusted resource, and they operate our HR hotline, and that is also available on our website. So definitely want to give a shout out to John and everyone over at Bodman for being a supporter there and a thought leader. But truly reaching out to the Michigan Chamber through info@michamber.com. We receive a lot of inquiries through that. Joining our webinars, asking questions. We use our resources like Jodi and like John. They've both done webinars and events for us. So again, thank you to both of you. But those opportunities to answer or ask and get your questions answered rather on those live webinars and those Q&A opportunities is extremely important. But we also use HRM and Bodman as a resource. So just reaching out, also staying connected to our Michigan Chamber news. We have our MCN that goes out weekly with all of those updates from the Capitol that I just referred to, making sure that that everyone is in the know and they know how to be active. They also know how to be compliant. So really just staying connected to the Michigan Chamber as a resource.
Great. Jodi?
You can learn more about our services on our website, which is workwithhrm.com. Things to kind of be looking at, I think, for Q4 and into next year. Mm-hmm. In Michigan, the unemployment, the maximum unemployment benefit will continue to rise year over year. So for budgeting purposes, I think employers need to be looking at that. Same thing with minimum wage. It's going to continue to rise, causing wage compression potentially depending on the pay scales of your business. So I think now's the time of year we start looking at finances, and those two have to be factored in the coming years. And I also think now is the time to start leveraging some of your technology, especially small to medium-sized businesses where you don't have the capital necessarily to have in-house expertise in all these areas. I think technology is coming a long way and incorporating AI into some of your workflows too. So we talked about AI in terms of like employee use, but I do think there's a business strategy where you can start thinking about how to utilize AI into some of the work that's being done that's sort of repeatable, functional type work, to maybe maximize and optimize some of your human capital and your financial capital. So now's the time to start thinking about that too for 2026.
No, great insight. John, you'll get the final word.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. I mean, Bodman is Bodman. We are in Grand Rapids, Detroit, and Troy, and can see whatever you want to see about us on our website. We are the law firm for the Detroit Lions, so go Lions.
That's right.
Which is so cool these days.
Yeah, it's fun to be winning again.
But yeah, and we have a really great team here, and we really feel privileged to be a part of the activities and the things that go on at the Michigan Chamber. And I'm really happy I was able to be a part of this today.
Great. Well, thank you so much. With that, we are out of time. A big thank you to John, Jodi, and Becky, helping us unpack what's going on in HR and employment law. Thanks to all of you for listening. Please make sure to like or subscribe our podcast for easy notifications. And for any more information on HR or things all Michigan Chamber, you go to michamber.com. Also, remember to bookmark michamber.com/MIBiz360 for a range of helpful resources.